So from here, I'm going to choose the file, click on my import file, and click Upload. I'm going to confirm that I want to upload that. And what it's going to do is it's going to tell me that I have a file here pending with 3 on-network projects, 0 off-network projects, or system projects, 0 errors and 0 warnings. Something I'll point out about the errors and the warnings, if you do import a file that has incorrectly formatted data or missing data, those errors and warnings will show up. And what you can do is actually download, if you do have errors or warnings, it will tell you that you have errors or warnings. And you can click on the file, it will download again, and it will actually highlight the field that has an error in yellow, or highlight the field that, warnings are in yellow, errors are in red. You can continue if there are warnings. You cannot continue if there are errors. So if you have errors, you'll need to fix those. If you have warnings, you can review those. You can download the file, and it will show you what those look like. Once you have that in here and you have it how you want it, again, if you had errors, you might want to download the file, make those changes, delete it out of this pending state, and import it again with your changes. And once you're done, you would click Confirm, and it would actually take those projects from your file, and it would put them into your portfolio like it just did. And now I can scroll down and I can see that I have those 3 projects listed here. So again, this is if you're importing project data, you can see that I have no sub data for these projects, but I did import them and they imported correctly. So questions about the import piece?
When you import it, would it automatically try to get some data if there was an active CSJ?
Yes.
Yes.
If it was a real CSJ,
Right.
And it was on a real control section rather than these.
Yep. So, yeah. But for this example, I'm going to keep them in here just to show what a bad example looks like.
Hey, Eric?
Yes.
So, could you explain the answer? We couldn't hear the answer to the question that the gentleman asked. I think he said if the real CSJ was assigned, it would pull that in the next time you open a portfolio or something?
Yeah, so the question was if the CSJ had a control section, a real control section, not zeros, would it pull in associated subdata from network, pavement, bridge, and crash data? And the answer is yes.
Okay.
And that happens when you complete the import.
And that happens when you complete the import, that's right.
Okay.
Versus when it's in that pending state, nothing gets pulled in until you actually confirm to bring those projects in.
So theoretically, you could put in the CSJs that you know are not reflected in your portfolio, and then it would pull in all that subset data.
Yes. And if I'm understanding that correctly, if you had a list of CSJs, you could, yes, import them from that file. And the other way that you could find those, if they were listed in DCIS, is you could do a search for projects on the search screen and actually put the list in here on this CSJ list field.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. So from here, I want to take you through 1 or 2 more actions that you might want to do. If you're still in your portfolio, for everyone in the room, on the phone, scroll down below the list of projects, and there are 3 options for export, which become handy for later. You can export this as a template file. So if I click on export, what this is going to do, and you can follow along too, is it's going to build an export file that has all of your project data from this portfolio in a file that looks like this. This has all of my projects listed in here. I might want to use this to import into another portfolio. Again, maybe you made changes to it. and you wanted to bring all those projects into another portfolio because you haven't made the source system changes, you could export it out, you could save it, you could share it with your friends. It's not on social media, and you can have it for later if you want. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, let me close this. So at the bottom, when you're inside your portfolio, below the list of projects is an export, this export section, and you can export these projects as a template.
You don't have to select them, right?
You do not have to select them, yeah. And that would download all the project data into that same import format that you would get from that blank template from before. That's kind of how I cheated and built that import file, or actually bended. But you can save that off and have it for later if you want to make changes and import it back in. So if you did want to make a change to all of your projects, maybe there was some specific piece of information that was incorrect, you could theoretically download all the projects into the template, make your changes to everything, clear out your portfolio, and then import it back in. Yeah, I think that would work. The other thing that you might see, you might have seen several places in PMDIS is pre-process and post-process data. And I'll explain what that is by going into a specific project. So if I click on a particular project, and you can follow along as well, you'll have a page for post-processed data. And what this is it's giving you, well, I think this one's going to be blank. Yeah.
Blank because it has
yeah.
process, yeah.
Thanks. I forgot about that. There is a column to let you know if this data has been processed. I'm doing air quotes for the phone. Process means it's taken the subsystem data, and it has performed the calculations that we went over in the first part of the training. All of those formulas that Kevin went through on scoring is what we call processing the data. You can manually force your portfolio to process the data at the bottom, but it also will process the data when you send this to Decision Lens eventually. And when that happens, the Process Data tab or the Process Data Export will have all that scoring data. But it doesn't actually go ahead and score it until you tell it to process the data, because it takes processing power, and you might not need to do it until you weed out which projects you want to use. Okay. So let's see. I think that's pretty much all I was going to go through with PMDIS. This next part, I want you to take your hands off the keyboard and don't follow along with me, but I want you to watch. Okay? So this next part is something that you do have the ability to do, but I'm asking you not to do it yet because I want to do it first. There's a yellow button that says Send to Decision Lens, and I'm going to click on it before anyone else does because I know there's people that want to do it. So what this is doing is it's taking all of the project data for the projects that I searched for the projects that I imported, for the projects that I made changes to, and it is preparing to build a Decision Lens portfolio of all of this with all the scoring data. It takes, I'm doing 8 projects or something, and it's going to take about a minute. If you have 300 to 1,000 projects, it may take a little bit of time, and the system is doing one person's work at a time, meaning that's why I don't want you all to click the button because it would take a long time. But you will see that you are in a queue to do this. So if you actually go to do it today or another day, I'm not going to stop you, but you might see that you're in a queue because someone else is ahead of you and it needs to process that. It takes a little bit of time. Okay, so it's done. Because it's done, I'm going to refresh this screen, and you will see that my processed column are all check marks. What this means is I can double-click on a particular project in PMDIS, look at the post-process data, and it is now complete. If I scroll down, I can see that I have preservation information for this particular one, preventative maintenance miles of distressed pavement. I mean, it's a bunch of raw data, but this kind of gives you a preview of what's going to be into Decision Lens. So I've sent it to Decision Lens. It's processed. what we're going to be going through in the afternoon is actually what you're going to be doing in Decision Lens. You're not going to be doing it with this portfolio. I've actually prepared a portfolio for everyone in this class. But I will show you what happens after you send it. I now have a link to view this portfolio in Decision Lens. I'm going to click on that. And because I'm already logged in, I don't have to log in again. This is a notice that you are in a training instance. It's just to let everyone know that you're there. This doesn't come up in production. So I have a portfolio here that I created. It has my 10 alternatives. It's Decision Lens Speak for Project. And it has my entire criteria set already built out for me. Again, the criteria set we alluded to at the beginning is this list of criteria that your projects are going to be scored against, the starting point. We will go through how you would make changes to this, delete, add, things like that. But at a very basic level, and I promise to go through a demo of Decision Lens for you that haven't seen it, but at a very basic level, I now have criteria, I have projects, they've all been scored, and I can see which projects are scoring the best and which projects are scoring the least. Amazingly, my project that I imported with no control section is scoring very well. I don't know. But this is how you would go about building a portfolio in PMDIS, making sure it has the right projects, and then sending it to Decision Lens to do all of the analysis and scoring and scenario development. So let me stop there and say, any questions on that? Yes?
Once in Decision Lens, you make changes to the way you want to re-export that portfolio for somebody else.
So when we...
Does the scoring continue with the portfolio?
So when it's in Decision Lens, any changes you make to the portfolio in Decision Lens, you can give people access to this portfolio now. There's a permissions structure that we're going to go through. You're going to be adding your people sitting next to you. You'll see how you do that. Any changes you make here, you would be saving here, and they would be here. But that
go back.
It wouldn't go back. Now, that does bring up a good point, which I did forget to mention. So just like project data coming from TXDOT source systems into PMDIS is a one-way street, data from PMDIS into Decision Lens is also a one-way street. So what does that mean for your portfolio? If you get to this point and you realize a project's not scoring well, it must have been missing something, or I'm missing a project or a set of projects in general, what I can do is I can go back into my PMDIS portfolio. I can search for additional projects, make changes if I needed to, and resend this portfolio to Decision Lens. However, and this is an important piece to pay attention to, is that when you resend a portfolio to Decision Lens, it deletes the Decision Lens portfolio and creates a new one. So any changes that you have made in Decision Lens would go away. Now, I will show you how to back that up and how to save that, or to copy it if you want to rename it and save it for another purpose. But right now, if you were to resend a portfolio, it will delete it in Decision Lens. So keep that in mind. Yeah. But yeah.
For the alternative analysis, you just give it a different name based on your selection, or is that something you'll cover later on?
The alternative analysis. What do you mean by that? In here?
Mm-hmm.
So the portfolio is created to mirror what you had in PMDIS. The same name. The naming at the top is the same. And the projects are all pulled in at the same. They're all the same projects. The data about the projects, it's pulling in all of the scored data, the scoring data, and a few other pieces of information. It's not pulling in every single piece. Yeah. Because at this point, you're doing the analysis on rank and importance and prioritization and scheduling and things like that. So the majority of the data from all of the source systems isn't needed.
Okay.
And that's why we only pulled over certain pieces, district, county, route, a couple others we'll go through, and then each of the criteria, which are all of those process scores for you to reference. You can pull in additional pieces. You can import more data or build more data out if you need it, but it isn't pulling in every single piece of data that you see from the other screen. Yeah, good question though. Okay. Any other questions? Anyone on the phone about what we just went through? PMDIS, sending it to Decision Lens.
I just have one more question.
Yeah.
New projects come up, in order to bring them in, you pretty much have to start over and create another portfolio?
Yes. Yeah. So if you do have additional projects that you find out about later, yeah, you'd have to build out you would add them to this portfolio here, and then you would send it to Decision Lens again. In the corner.
I wanted to address that, Eric. One of the reasons it'd be a good idea to recreate a portfolio is because you want a portfolio to be using consistent data. So even if you weren't able to go in and override a project, that would be using whatever DCIS had that day. So you can kind of understand what I'm saying. At some point, you lose track of which, since that system changes every day, all the other projects in there would have whatever day you pull that DCIS. So portfolios, generally, we encourage that when you're scoring projects, you score them with the same data. Does that make sense?
Okay. All right. So let me recap on one thing about PMDIS from the beginning. So back on the community page, I want to point out that we do have the links to PMDIS, both the training instance at the bottom and the production instance at the top under key links. We have 4 videos that go through some of the things we went through today, much shorter videos. We have the creating a portfolio, adding projects to your portfolio, importing project data from the template file, and sending the portfolio to Decision Lens. One thing I did want to ask, Ben, if you can help me remember, when you send a portfolio to Decision Lens in production, who is added to that portfolio by default?
Everyone who can see that portfolio in PMDIS. So if you're uploading for Abilene District, and a portfolio that is specifically made for Abilene District, everyone who has access to see Abilene District projects in PMDIS will be added to that portfolio in Decision Lens.
Okay. One of the pieces we'll be getting into this afternoon is permissions, because you, as an owner of a portfolio in Decision Lens, can set the permissions of who you want to have access to your portfolio and what you want them to be able to do. In the production instance, which is not what we're in today, anyone that's set up to have access to your district's projects in PMDIS will automatically be added in Decision Lens, and then you can tweak it from there. Yeah. So let's see. I think that's pretty much it from PMDIS, unless I'm missing anything. We're a little ahead of schedule.
Since we're ahead of schedule, can you go back and try and edit a project again?
Oh, Ben, you cheated. You changed the rules. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to change a project and try and save it because it saved successfully.
And now we can see the way that it's going to be named in Decision Lens if you go back to the project list. Should actually say it there.
Okay.
That is the name as displayed in Decision Lens when you have both the CSJ and the project ID.
So for those people on the phone, I'm not sure if you heard that, we went in and made a change to this project ID, which traditionally is blank, and we put custom. That shows up here as appended name to the project ID itself, or the CSJ. And if you, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this to Decision Lens again and just make sure that worked. But that is what would show up as the project name in Decision Lens. So I'm sending it to Decision Lens. I don't know if you just caught that. There was a step where it said removing old model. It's now old. This is where one of the first things I'm going to teach you to do is how to back up a Decision Lens portfolio for version control, because as you do, or you may update doing this process, you would want to back that up or save it in case you wanted to reference it later. Okay, so it's in Decision Lens. I'm going to open that new portfolio. And if I go to my alternatives list, I should be able to see that say custom. And there it is, number 8. So, right there. All right. Nicely done, Ben. Thank you. Okay, so I really wanted to save all the Decision Lens stuff for after lunch, just as a nice break. So if there's no other questions or nothing that anyone wants to see me go through again, I think we'll break early for lunch and just come back at 1 versus 1:15.
I have a question on the upload template.
Certainly.
So you did not put the hash marks in on your CSJ?
Correct.
Correct.
I did
But
6.
then when it converted it to hash marks, when it went into...
Yeah, it did. It looked like
when you're
this.
doing your Excel spreadsheet, does it care if you have the hash marks in there or not?
It does not.
It does not, okay.
And the same is true for the project search page. You
Okay.
can put those dashes, you could take letters in there if you wanted to,
Okay.
just gonna ignore them.
Yeah.
You know, everybody works off of 10 different Excels that have 10 different formats.
That's where I would,
Thinking about that.
and here, let me, if I open this file up again, and I put in test, and I import this in. I mentioned about the warnings and the errors before. So if I import this file, I have an error. So if I download this file and I open it up, oh, I have one open. It is giving me the error that this one is red because it can't import it with that. I have warnings.
It tries to parse the value in that field. The effective value of the CSJ in this field is completely blank.
Right.
Because it strips out any non-numeric characters to find the actual CSJ.
Yep. But this is where the error message that shows up here, when you click on the file to download, you can easily see where that is and make that change. And then import it back in by deleting this one and then re-uploading a fixed version of that file. Okay? You're welcome. All right. So with that, if there's no questions on the phone, on the chat, I guess, we will go ahead and break for lunch, and we will get back at 1 o'clock, and we'll start going back into Decision Lens. Okay? And for those on the phone, I think we might, are we going to just put it on mute, or should we stop it?
No, we'll put it on mute.
Okay. So we'll put it on mute, and we'll get back going at 1 o'clock with Decision Lens. Thanks, everyone.